Hello, everyone, and welcome in to another episode of the RTI and VR2 Recruiting Podcast. I am Nathaniel Rutherford, the managing editor of RockyTopInsider.com, joined by Brandon Martin of VR2. Only Brandon this week. Last week it was just me and Matt. This time it's going to be just me and Brandon. We'll hopefully eventually next week get all three of us in because I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about next week too, because it's that time of year where recruiting is getting to heat up big time. You'll have a little bit of a dead period coming up, if I remember correctly, but then you have the early signing period happening, or I guess maybe you don't, but we may have before all the early signing period stuff happen. Now it's just, we have the early signing period about 2 weeks away or so, 2-3 weeks away, and I guess closer to 3, but we got a lot of stuff to cover in this podcast. So Brandon, let's hit the ground running. This weekend has turned into a pretty big weekend for Tennessee on the visitor front. Some of these names I'm going to list off are subjects to change. Some might be added later that we don't know who are coming in. But as of right now, you have a lot of guys coming in who are currently committed to Tennessee, a lot of guys who currently are not committed to Tennessee who are coming in, and some guys who are committed elsewhere who Tennessee is hoping to get in on a visit this weekend. One name we'll mention, we talked about last podcast, was Vi Cajo, I think I said his name correctly. He's the linebacker who's committed to Nevada, who Tennessee's really high on, and who was supposed to be coming in to visit this weekend. He will not be coming in to visit this weekend. He will actually be coming in December because his team is very, very good. They're still playing in the playoffs, so it's hard for him, being way out west like he is, to play a game on Friday and then come out for a visit on Saturday. So he's going to come at a later date. Another big note, Brandon, and we'll touch on this in a second, is Desmond Tisdall, who we both have talked about looking like he's close to popping any second now. He's going to be coming on a visit this weekend instead. So you don't have Cajo coming in. You have Tisdall coming in. He's actually going to be taking an unofficial this weekend and still be taking his official, I think, December 13th. That's when it's still scheduled. So that's kind of a big change, a big thing to note. Other visitors are Tennessee commits Harrison Bailey, Keyshawn Lawrence, Jimmy Callaway. Those are all guys that are supposed to be in here this weekend. Some of the uncommitted, or some of the prospects who are not committed to Tennessee who are coming in: in-state offensive lineman Marcus Henderson supposed to be here. Cornerback Kendall Dennis. Lyneth Whitehead is supposed to be in. I mentioned Tisdall already. You also have four-star wide receiver who's committed to Pitt, who's a recent offer from Tennessee, Jalen Barden. He kind of made some interesting comments about Tennessee when they offered him to, I think it was Ryan Callahan, at 247 Sports, or it might have been VolQuest. I truly forget which one it was now, but he did an interview with one of those sites and talked about that he was fully committed to Pittsburgh, and then suddenly Tennessee offered, and now he's like, I've got a decision to make, so he's going to be coming in on a visit this weekend. You also have Florida State commit defensive end pass rusher Morven Joseph. You have Reginald Perry, who's a defensive lineman. Kari Coleman's coming in, and I believe D. Beckwith is also coming in as well. So those are just the 2020 kids. You also have Adonai Mitchell, who's now we believe is a 2021 prospect who's coming in. 5-star 2021 defensive end Dylan Brooks is coming in. And I think there's a couple other 2021 and 22 players also coming in. You have an in-state 2021 kid out of Innsworth, and that is Andre Turrentine, who's supposed to be coming in as well. So Brandon, lots of guys coming in this weekend. That's just, that's what we know of. Like I said, I think there will probably be a few guys we don't know of. There's also going to be a ton, I'd say, imagine 2021, 2022 kids. You also have a Nebraska wide receiver transfer, Miles Jones, who's going to be coming in on a visit for this weekend, which that's an interesting one to me, and I'll probably have an article written about that on RockyTopInsider.com not long after this podcast comes out. But, Brandon, where do we begin? I think what's most notable of this group, like I said earlier, that Tisdall's coming in. You have Lyneth Whitehead's coming in. I think Jalen Barden is a very interesting guy, the 4-star Pitt receiver who's coming in. Morven Joseph obviously is an interesting one, but I think this is a very interesting last big visit weekend for Tennessee as far as who else coming in and what kind of to watch for this weekend.
It's been a while since Vanderbilt has been a huge recruiting visiting weekend for Tennessee. You've traditionally had some visitors, but this is a huge recruiting weekend for Tennessee. The last few years, it's felt like on those last home games, Tennessee was sort of limping down the stretch or trying to get to the end of the season so the bleeding would stop. And this year, it's the complete opposite. Everything's trending up. You're on a winning streak. The program feels better. The team has looked better. You've got this thing turned around. You're going to a bowl game. You got a chance to win out. And you got a chance to come out and beat a Vanderbilt team that's beat you 3 years in a row and make a really strong impression, Tennessee could still end up with a top 10 recruiting class. If they land some of the guys that they are still very realistically in on, you don't have to squint hard to see. It'd be high in the top 10, but you could get in the top 10 with this class. And I think the guy that starts with is Lyneth Whitehead. Lyneth is, I've told you before, I think I've seen most of Tennessee's linebacker targets this season. I haven't seen Cajo. Obviously, I'm not going that far. But I've seen most of Tennessee's linebacker targets this season, and as much as I love the guys at Whitehaven, Whitehead impressed me more than anybody else. He played just about the most impressive half I've ever seen a linebacker play. Tennessee has told him he could play running back here, and that he is going to get a chance to do that if he wants to. I think ultimately Lyneth probably gets to campus. I think he's going to get a good, long, hard look at running back. And don't get me wrong, he's a good back. He's a good running back. I just think his ceiling is so much higher as a linebacker. I think it would take Tennessee landing another real impact linebacker or two for him to stay at running back and striking out in the running back class. But the two guys that I think are going to change that are Tisdale and Whitehead. And I think both could commit this weekend. That's a hunch. We know that Whitehead has still got an official visit as of right now scheduled to UCLA. Mm-hmm. There have been a few rumblings that he might make that visit. He might not. Up until that UCLA offer, he was down to, he said himself, I'm really struggling between two schools. It's widely known that it's South Carolina and Tennessee. He was going to commit earlier in the month, decided to push it back. When he pushed it back, we all agreed that was a really good thing for Tennessee. It's kind of been known that Tennessee really wants to get him on campus again. They feel like if they can get him on campus again, they can shut this thing down. I think Tennessee has a really good chance of getting Whitehead to commit this week on this visit. And then we've talked about Desmond Tisdale. Tisdale has been he's become a joke. You got a text message from me, I think, earlier in the week. He released another one of those edits that was not a commitment edit, but I wasn't sure. And I told you then at this point it's personal. I want to be ready when I get this one. He's made it personal with me because he's almost got me about 5 or 6 times. I think Tisdale's ready to pop. I think he's here for an unofficial. He's coming back for an official. And we talk all the time, the last visit and follow the visits. Then you monitor the social media account. Everything with Tisdale points to he wants to come to Tennessee. Tennessee wants to have him. And I think he might be the reason that Lyneth Whitehead winds up at linebacker instead of running back, because I think Tisdale's a better running back. But Tennessee could be landing 2 high 4-star guys this weekend. I wouldn't be stunned if they get them both, and I think that's where everything starts.
I think a question to you: if I don't know that he will commit this weekend. Like I said, we just talked about we feel like he's almost done it a couple different times, but I don't know that he will. But if Tisdale does commit this weekend to Tennessee on his visit or after his visit or whenever, do the Vols take both him and Cajo? Because I know there's just we touched on this a little bit last week. Matt and I did. We both at that point thought that they wouldn't, that they'd only take one. They would take the first one who would commit if both wanted to commit. But I don't know. There's now talk that maybe they take both. I personally think with the limited number of spots in this class, I don't think Tennessee would take both unless one of them is willing to. Unless one of them is willing to play running back, one's willing to play linebacker. And like I said, Tennessee has Lyneth Whitehead in that situation. They have Tisdale in that situation. I think Cajo is more of a linebacker. I don't think he projects as a running back. So I think if you're going to have someone switch, it'd be Tisdale. But if Tisdale commits, Brandon, what is your gut feeling? Do they just accept him, or do they still try to get Cajo to come in here and maybe still take him too?
this staff is really, really high on Cajo. They like him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see some of it on film. I'm not quite as high, I think, as the staff is, but Mel Tucker, who was defensive coordinator with so much success for so long at Georgia, is very, very high on Cajo. He's at Colorado now, trying to get him out there. Jeremy Pruitt, who we all know, one of the best defensive minds in college football in the last probably decade, very, very high on Cajo. That's two guys that know linebackers, they know defensive players, they both want him bad. If they can get him, I think they'll probably try to take him, but it's going to depend on where a few other things go. And Cajo, you may see Tennessee take an additional commitment, a verbal commitment, and not have these guys sign just yet. The issue with Tisdall has been people have been worried about grades. People have been worried about grades. They've been worried about his ability to get eligible. And so maybe if you're Tennessee, how confident do you feel that he's going to be ready? Because you almost missed pretty famously on this one in your first class with J.J. Peterson.
Yeah.
And they just barely got Peterson eligible. In fact, it was after the start of his freshman season that he got eligible. They'd already played a game. So you can't afford to do that if you're Tennessee. As talented as he is, you can't waste a scholarship on a guy that is not going to be able to play for you. Now, Peterson's starting to round into form a little bit. Injuries and lack of depth have pressed him into service. He's played a bit, but he's not been the instant impact that I think a lot of people thought he would be. So there's a chance Tennessee may take commitments from both, and you may see him make sure Tisdall has all the grades in order.
Yeah, his grade situation, while I don't think is to the same level as what J.J. Peterson's was, I think if he commits to Tennessee, I don't think he'll be waiting into fall camp and even until the season begins to kind of wait on him. But I agree with you. His grade situation, maybe it's like a George Pickens or something like that, where that was obviously grades concerns with George Pickens. There were concerns with, and you look at this Tennessee's past 2019 class with Anthony Harris, the 4-star safety who's committed to Tennessee, never ended up making it into the class because of his grade concerns. And now I think I don't remember where, but I think he's in a JUCO now, and we'll be interested to see what happens with him in a couple years if Tennessee come back around for him or not. So that'll be interesting to watch here in the next couple years or so in the recruiting trail. But I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like you said, these numbers, not everyone who's committed to Tennessee currently in their 2020 class will be a part of this class. I do think the vast majority of them will be, but we've talked about it before. Jimmy Callaway is probably the most likely to flip. Even still, him coming in this weekend is good news and big news for Tennessee that he's coming in on a visit as long as he makes it in. But there are a couple of guys you could look around and say, what about this guy? But I don't think all of them, but I don't think you'll see a mass exodus. I think at most of the guys who are currently committed to Tennessee, probably only 2 or 3 wouldn't be a part of this class. And I don't know that really many of them would be guys that Tennessee would force out or give the old get shirt, as people like to say. I don't think most, if they're going to leave, I think a lot of the guys who leave, if they leave, would be guys who do it on their own accord, not guys who are getting kind of pushed out. But Brandon, we had one other topic we want to talk about of these guys who are coming in and visiting this weekend. We mentioned Callaway, but there's also wide receivers coming in. There's supposed to be, I don't know if he's still coming in or not. I haven't heard a final word on it. Ramon Henderson was supposed to be a guy coming in who is a wide receiver out west, and you and I were talking about him a little bit before we hit record here, Brandon. He is a 4-star wide receiver who plays over in Bakersfield, California, about 6'2", 185, somewhere around there. He was supposed to be coming in this weekend to see Tennessee, but I don't know that he's actually going to make it or not. They got him on his 247 Sports timeline as still coming in for an official visit. We'll see if he does. Not sure if he's going to, but one guy who is supposed to be coming in that is more solidified right now is 4-star Pitt receiver Jalen Barden, who he's committed to Pitt. He's been committed to Pitt for a while, and he did an interview recently where he said, I can't remember who it was with now either, but he did it with one other Go Vols 247 or VolQuest, where he said, I think it was Ryan Callahan who he spoke with, sort of Go Vols 247, where he said, I was committed to Pitt 100%, but then I got the offer from Tennessee, and now I've got a decision to make. The actual quote was a decision to make. He tweeted out earlier this week that I think it was to Pitt Nation, something like, I'm not going nowhere, Pitt Nation, don't worry. But then he confirmed that he's going to be coming to Knoxville on an official visit this weekend. So, Brandon, what do you make of Jalen Barden coming in? Is he a guy that, I don't think he should be on commit watch this weekend, obviously, but is he a guy that could be taking a spot of someone? Is he a guy that maybe now that Tennessee could be backing off of Thayou Jones-Bell? What do we read into this offer and getting this guy to come on campus this weekend?
I think it's a little bit of a chain reaction. Tennessee really wanted Rakeem Jarrett.
Yep.
There was no doubt about that. Tennessee face planted to start the season, and that hurt them with Jarrett considerably. But there was a strong connection there. A lot of people felt like, well, there's still a chance he could get turned around. We didn't really feel like the LSU thing was that serious. And then LSU did what they're doing this year with Burrow and Brady, and they're slinging it all over the field, and they look fantastic, and Burrow's about to win a Heisman Trophy and got a very, very realistic shot of playing for and winning a national championship. Mm-hmm. And kind of looks like Rakeem Jarrett's going to wind up staying at LSU. Yep. Alabama also thought they were going to have a chance to flip Jarrett. And the thought there was, if they take Jarrett, Thayou Jones-Bell's probably going to free up. And I have a hard time seeing Tennessee prying Jones-Bell away from Alabama. I've always kind of felt like that was a long shot, especially with them losing the receivers they're losing. We'll see. Tennessee has consistently kept chopping away at that one. But this is also, you're getting late in the recruiting process. You're getting down, late November, early signing period's coming up. And if you're Tennessee, you need some receivers. Yeah. Period, the end. You got to get some receivers in this class. I think you need at least two more. And they need to be guys who can come in and make an impact early for you. If they feel like they can flip Braden, they're going to. And if he's coming, it's one of those things, well, is it just a kid taking visits? Mm-hmm. It's a little...
See, I don't think it is. I think he's legitimately interested, because I'm about to pull up his timeline, but I'm thinking he hasn't visited... Yeah, he's not visited anywhere since he committed to Pitt. He committed to Pitt back in late April. He's, at least not according to the 247 timeline, he's not visited anywhere since committing to Pitt. Like I said, in his article, you made it sound like he was pretty solidly committed to Pitt, and then Tennessee offered him. He's like, well, now I'm gonna go on this visit. I'm gonna kind of keep things a little open, maybe not as open as maybe he originally kind of looked like, but he definitely is very interested in Tennessee, it looks like. So, and like I said, he's not visited anywhere else. So it's very intriguing to me that he's taking this visit to Tennessee.
And if you're Tennessee, you've got to like your chances, because how many times have you, and you've been doing this longer than I have, how many times have you talked to a kid and the reason he decided to come to Tennessee was, man, the coaches were great, da-da-da-da-da, and then I came to Neyland. That game atmosphere sells a lot of kids. Mm-hmm. The family environment and that atmosphere. Walking out into Neyland Stadium, seeing it packed, seeing it loud. And I'm just going to tell you, it's senior day. There's going to be a couple of receivers running through the tee on Saturday for the last time. And it's going to be the loudest ovation a Tennessee senior has gotten in a long, long, long time when 15 comes through. When Juwan Jennings makes that last run through the tee, it's going to be the loudest Neyland Stadium has been in a long time, especially on senior day. If you're a wide receiver sitting in the stands, knowing Harrison Bailey's coming, knowing Brian Maurer's still here, knowing Jarrett Garantano has another year, you've got Jim Chaney for an offensive coordinator. and there's going to be playing time, something's got to go through your mind that could be me. In 4 years, that could be me. I think that's going to be a big selling point. I think that's going to make an impact. I think you're also going to see the game plan make an impact because Tennessee has a chance to put it on Vanderbilt on Saturday. And it's going to be – the reason Tennessee's favored by 3 touchdowns is people don't believe that Vanderbilt can cover Tennessee's wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
So Tennessee's got a chance to make a really strong sales pitch to any receiver they can get in there. If you're interested in Tennessee anyway, and I think he is or he wouldn't take the visit. Like you said, he's not been anywhere else since committing to Pitt. This is a big deal to get him there. If you're Tennessee, everything's kind of lining up for you to blow this kid out of the water. I think it's something to watch.
I'm going to be very intrigued. He's a guy that, like I said, I don't expect anything from him this weekend, but him emerging as a new target it's very interesting to me. And like we were saying, I think obviously the ship is obviously, in my opinion, sailed on Rakeem Jarrett. I also wonder how much the ship has sailed on Thayer Jones-Bell as well, and I think that's could be an interesting reason, or interesting just storyline to watch with Barden. I think he's a good athlete. He's got really good speed. He's a good track kid. I'm not thinking of someone else, but he is a good athlete though, just from watching his film and stuff too. I can't remember if he's a track athlete or not, but he's an interesting prospect to keep an eye on for sure.
One other potential receiver in this class that could play receiver that's visiting is going to be D. Beckwith.
Yeah, that's true. We talked about him a little bit last week. Matt and I did. Yeah, his recruitment has been interesting because I mentioned last week. Obviously, he has the basketball offer to Tennessee and Florida, and he also has one for Ole Miss. So he's got some SEC, quote unquote basketball offers. But I think the only one, as Matt pointed out, that the only school that's really offered him playing time for both would be UAB. And I just if he's really serious about basketball, maybe he'll go there. But if he really wants to play football and really wants to get the exposure that he wants and I think deserves, then basketball, I don't know. His recruitment's interesting, but he's definitely an option. I 100% agree.
I've gotten to see Beckwith live. He's a big athlete. He's a very smooth athlete, strong. Tennessee has thought that maybe they could play him at tight end some. They've talked about using him maybe at linebacker. They've talked about using him as a wildcat quarterback like Jennings. And he's very different physically from a lot of the other guys that Tennessee has looked at in this class. He's more like the receivers Tennessee has now. He's a big, strong kid, long strider, good acceleration. He's interesting. I don't know what he'd be. I think he's a wide receiver. I keep hearing people talk about wanting to use him at tight end. Either way, Tennessee needs a big wide. They need a receiver period in this class. Another one. They could really use a big wide receiver in this class. They need a tight end. Right now, the only 2 guys on the board for tight end are going to be Darnell Washington and if you think D. Beckwith can do it. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Tennessee's also supposed to get Blaine Toll on campus this weekend. Currently committed to Arkansas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's one that hopefully he'll get in. That'll be an interesting one to see if he makes it or not.
He's one to circle because Tennessee was very, very heavily involved in that one and kind of felt like they were making a late push. He commits to Arkansas. He stays in state. And then the wheels have come off at Arkansas. They're not really sure. They're not really sure what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who the coach is going to be. You don't know what it's going to be going forward. You feel bad taking a kid that maybe has been committed and you feel like you're playing off somebody's misfortune. That's exactly what happened to Tennessee and Butch Jones last year.
I was about to say, that's happened to Tennessee I don't know how many times. I don't know if Vol fans would feel bad about that.
That's exactly what's happened, and I think Toll probably wanted to be a Razorback. I believe he wanted to stay home. I think he wants to be at Arkansas, but the way things have gone there, it becomes a business decision. I think Cade Mays, for Tennessee fans, is probably a real similar example.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Cade, Knoxville kid, talked about wanting to stay home, legacy, wanted to be at UT. everything happened in that 4-8 season, and Cade made a business decision. I can't fault him for it. I think Tennessee might be about to be on the beneficial end of that. If they can get Toll on campus, that's an interesting one to watch because he's a take and could help a lot of places.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you there. He's one that'll be another one to kind of circle and just there's a lot of names to circle and keep an eye on moving forward here. Speaking of one to circle and keep an eye on, one we know who will be announcing soon, and that is in-state defensive/offensive lineman, but probably defensive lineman, 4-star out of Memphis, Briarcrest Christian, Omari Thomas. He made an announcement earlier this week that he will be committing on December 8th. I don't really know what time exactly, because we could commit on December 8th if he's getting his jersey for being an All-American. So he's going to be announcing it. It seems, Brandon, it seems like Tennessee, but at the same time, this is another one like with Jay Hardy where Auburn's trying to make a push here. It seems like late. I don't know that Auburn will be able to get that same type of push, but I'm curious your feel on it. I don't want to sit here and pretend like there's no chance, because we all sat here and thought, hey, Tennessee is going to land Jay Hardy for sure, and then lo and behold, Auburn makes a late push, and now he's committed to Auburn. Obviously, that's definitely not over. We've talked about that before. We think Tennessee can still get it in there and maybe flip him if things go the right way with Tennessee, but with Omari Thomas, what is your gut feeling? Because my gut is either Tennessee or Ole Miss, but then the Auburn stuff definitely does worry me a little bit.
I think it's Tennessee. I've seen Amari a few times this season. I've talked with him several times. As long as times work out, depending on what time that commitment is, I'm planning on going to his announcement. I'm planning on being there to cover that for VR2. I think Amari's going to wind up at Tennessee. Last time I saw him, he's playing in Tennessee gloves. He really gets excited talking about Tennessee. I know Ole Miss has pushed there, but it doesn't feel the same. You don't get the same vibe off of him. And I don't know that he fits what Ole Miss is doing on defense as much. I think Ole Miss would want to put him inside, and Amari Thomas is a monster wherever you put him. He's going to destroy people wherever you line him up, offense, defense, inside, outside. But I think he's a 3-4 defensive end, and he has the long arms for that. He has the long frame. He moves incredibly well for his size. It is – you watch him on film and you go, that's a big man covering a lot of ground and making people look silly. And then when you actually watch it, and one of the games I watched was him going head-on-head against Marcus Henderson. And Henderson was an absolute technician. Amari, also good technique, just a freak athlete. Long arms, uses his hands well, relentless pass rusher. When he comes off the edge, he does not quit on a play until the whistle blows. He got a sack in that game. He missed the quarterback twice. Got a hand on him going by once, and Marcus was able to force him off. He spins back inside, looks like he's going to get him again. A guard hits him, and he fights through the guard and still gets the sack. And I just think, especially with Jay Hardy being committed to Auburn right now, I think he's going to come to Tennessee. I think he's a Tennessee lean right now. Ole Miss wants him bad. It'll be interesting to see how things play out with him. But he was originally going to commit at the Under Armour game. Mm-hmm. And that timeline has slowly moved up and moved up and moved up. And the team that you keep hearing about making noise with him, and the team that he keeps leaning toward and being interested in, it continues to be Tennessee. That's the buzz with him. And the more buzz there's been about Tennessee, the further that commitment date has moved up. And so I think Tennessee's the favorite there. Now, it's recruiting. Crazy stuff happens.
Yep.
But and I'd have bet the house that Jay Hardy was going to be a Vol, and I'd be homeless. But I think Amari Thomas is going to wind up at UT.
That's my gut just Barely. I also I'm wondering, Brandon. I've heard this from. It's been kind of unconfirmed from what I've heard. Or actually, I don't know where I didn't remember where I've heard it. It's been a long week, and I can't remember where all the news I've heard and where it's come from and everything. Just being completely honest, but I've heard also that part of the way Tennessee has been recruiting Omari to make a push for him is that they've been kind of turning up the heat a little bit on Jabari Small, the wide receiver, or not wide receiver, excuse me, running back who plays with Omari over Briarcrest, who's committed to Ole Miss. Is that true? And if they are turning up the heat on him, is he a guy that maybe Tennessee's looking at to actually add, or is it just something that they're doing to maybe get to Omari a little more? I'm curious, is that true? Have they been turning the heat up a little bit more on Jabari Small?
Tennessee has turned the heat up on Jabari Small. They've been recruiting him harder. They've been making some pushes there. Of course, Jabari and Rodney Newsom, who are two of Amari's best friends and also play with him there at Briarcrest, were on his official visit with him to Knoxville. Newsom's coming back again. I've watched Jabari Small a couple times too, and I got to tell you, man, Tennessee seems like they want a bigger running back.
Yep.
That seems to be what Pruitt's looking for. He wants another big back, even though they've got T. Hodge in this class. He keeps looking for a bigger back. If you get Jabari Small, I have a hard time turning him down. This is a very, very productive back. He runs between the tackles well. He's got good hands. Very complete. This is not one of those things that you're offering a kid, taking a kid you don't really want to try to land the big fish. Amari's the bigger fish, but Jabari's not small game either. This is a good running back. He had Tennessee offers. Tennessee's turned up the heat some. I don't think they have the heat all the way up. It's clicked up, but I don't think it's all the way up. If Tennessee were to miss on Tisdale and or Whitehead, you may see the heat go all the way to 11. Because I think Whitehead's future is at linebacker. I really do. He's going to get a look at running back. I think he's a linebacker. I think his ceiling's higher there. He's too good on defense. But if you want to make that move, you got to have another quality running back in this class. If you were to miss on Tisdale, Jabari's the only other guy on the board right now. And we've seen Tennessee going after some other running backs, looking at some JUCO guys.
Yep.
So if they could get Jabari Small, I think they'd take him. If they thought they could get him from Ole Miss, I think they'd take him. And this may be worth noting. Ole Miss is right now the number 7 rushing offense in the nation.
Yep.
And it's all true freshmen. You've got the top 2 running backs, both true freshmen, which means Jabari's committed down there, but I don't know how many carries he's going to get. Because Ely's really good, and number 24 for them is also, he's the bigger power back.
Yep.
It may be one of those things of Jabari going, I'm going to have to fight through 2 other really talented freshmen who are ahead of me on the depth chart and have had success, or come sit 1 year at Tennessee and probably have a shot to get some carries. So,
well, plus their quarterback, who's a freshman this year, he'll be, I guess, a sophomore next year. I mean, he runs the ball a ton, and he's not just a guy who'll pick up 3 or 4 yards. He's a dynamic running back for them. Reese Plumlee, he is a really good running quarterback too. So you got to think that he could be eating into your carries too.
Over 1,000 rushing yards this season for John Ross Plumlee, and he didn't start till the 5th game of the season, and has 1,000 rushing yards. So, I mean,
he's impressive.
Yes, he is. And if you're looking at Small, on one hand, you're going, man, you got 3 guys carrying the ball a lot. Everybody's getting big yards, kind of like when Tennessee had Hurd, Kamara, Dobbs, John Kelly. It was loaded. You had a lot of ball carriers, but everybody got their yards, and it worked. But the other side of it is maybe I don't want to have that few carries when I feel like I can go with my friend, go into a similar situation, and have a better shot to be the guy. So he's going to be interesting down the stretch. But Tennessee did turn the heat up on him some.
Okay, that is good to know. That's a question I had that I was curious about it. I'd seen that mentioned, but I was curious if, obviously you guys have a lot of good connections with the in-state kids, so I was curious about that as well. Kind of the last big thing here I want to talk about on this episode, Brandon, and thank you all of you who are listening to this RTI and VR2 Recruiting Podcast. We appreciate it immensely, both at RTI and at VR2. You guys are fantastic, and we appreciate all your listens, all your interactions, all your questions, comments, everything else that you do with the podcast, with the show. Last thing I want to touch on here before we end this episode, Reggie Grimes, in-state prospect, at one point was number 1 overall player in the state. I think it's changed on most sites, but he's still a highly rated guy. It's still a 4-star prospect. Alabama legacy, big in-state prospect who Tennessee has obviously been in contact with. Ended up committing out of the SEC. It seemed like for a while there, Tennessee and South Carolina were 2 teams kind of circling kind of in the mix for him. But I remember talking with Matt, and I think actually you might have been on the same podcast too, Brandon, but I remember specifically talking with Matt about Reggie before, and he's saying, if it isn't South Carolina, he thinks that it might be Oklahoma where he goes. Lo and behold, that is where Reggie Grimes committed. He committed this week on Thanksgiving to Oklahoma. Not a huge surprise at all. By everyone who's been kind of following the recruitment, it didn't seem like Tennessee was going to be the choice. It didn't seem like Alabama was really pushing for him, even though he was a legacy. And South Carolina, that was just an interesting situation, and just with all the turmoil there, I think that was just kind of, again, what kind of fit is he going to have there? Going to Oklahoma is interesting. I think he could be a very good fit, because I think he's an athlete that I think he's a good athlete. My biggest question, and Brandon, I know you've been a big advocate of Tennessee just taking him and figuring it out. My biggest question, and I think everyone's biggest question, is where does he fit in this defense? I think if he gets a defense where he's a good fit, he can have a good career, a good couple of seasons at least at a school. I think he's a better fit defensively for what Oklahoma's doing than he was, here at Tennessee or maybe even in South Carolina. But it didn't surprise me to see he committed to Oklahoma. I think that one's over. I'd be pretty stunned if he was to flip to anywhere else between now and the signing period. But just kind of your overall thoughts about that, and does Tennessee, where are they looking at now for some pass rushing options, because he is definitely off the board. I think we can look at as we mentioned earlier, some guys visiting this weekend like Mormon Joseph and Kari Coleman. I think those are 2 obvious names, and they also have Kari Coleman's a Kansas commit who's coming in this weekend, who Tennessee had camped over the summer, and he's got a Tennessee offer, so that's another name to keep an eye on. But what just your reaction to the Reggie Grimes stuff, and kind of where you think Tennessee's going to go on the pass rushing front moving forward?
Thrilled for Reggie. I've said this before. I've covered Reggie a lot. I've had the opportunity to get to know him. I've had the opportunity to get to know his family. And I said this after his announcement. This is one of the finest young men I've ever met. Forget football players. This is one of the finest young men I've ever met. I fully expect to vote for him for governor one day. Wants to be a mechanical engineer. Extraordinarily intelligent. I very, very highly of Reggie Grimes, the young man. I think he's a better person than he is a football player, and I think he's an outstanding football player. Alex Grinch is cackling like a Saturday morning cartoon villain right now because he just got a monster. Grimes in that defense. Grinch needs pass rushers. It's the Big 12. Kind of everybody but Oklahoma defense is optional. That's part of the reason Oklahoma keeps winning. Grinch needs pass rushers. He wants pressure guys. He needs lean guys that can run, and that's what Reggie is. I think Reggie is a 4-3 end in that scheme. Potentially a guy they move to a linebacker in some sub packages, or if they want to give an odd front, they can move him outside. He's a good enough athlete to cover in space. They can bring him off the edge. And he's smart enough to learn whatever you want him to learn. He's coach's son. His dad played at Alabama, played with the Patriots. This is a kid you can give a big hunk of the playbook to, and he's going to bust his tail, learn it, apply it, and do what you need him to do. I think Alex Grinch just got a guy he's going to use all over his defense and who's going to make a huge impact for him. Tennessee did back off at the end. about the last month, Tennessee didn't stop pursuing Reggie Grimes, but they didn't pursue him as hard.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. I know there have been some doubts and some questions raised about him. One of the things that I have heard some people say who kind of detracted from him is like, oh, he doesn't like contact. I don't think that's true, because I have watched him contact some guys that are probably still contacted. People say, well, we don't have a lot of film of him against the run. I've watched Ravenwood 5 or 6 times this season in various games against a lot of pretty good competition. The reason you don't have much film of him against the run is teams don't run at him.
Yeah, I did know that. They tend to not run towards him.
It's not tend to not runs towards him. They have a top 50 linebacker in the nation in Junior Colson playing the opposite side of Reggie in the 2021 class. And teams run seriously 85 to 90% of the time into Colson. They don't run at Grimes at all. People don't go to that side of the field. One of the things I've seen teams try to do to slow him down is they throw screen passes at him. He's picked a couple off and housed them. So he's very alert. He's very intelligent. Football IQ's through the charts. I don't like to be critical of a coaching staff, but I think Tennessee made a mistake here. I feel like this is a kid you push for. I've said that from the beginning. The question with Reggie has always been, what is he? Mm-hmm. He's a long, lean, strong kid. I think if you wanted to make him a defensive end or an outside linebacker, you want to bulk him up some. He has the frame to do that. Part of the reason you've not seen him bulk up more is he still plays running back for Ravenwood. He plays significant snaps there, gets significant carries. He can't bulk up too much without sacrificing his speed there. Mm-hmm. At the college level, you remove that, you put the weight on him. I feel like he's smart enough to do whatever you need him to do. He is a high character guy. He's going to be great for your locker room. To me, every question that a coach has about Reggie Grimes can be fixed with good coaching and a good strength and conditioning program. Tennessee has all that. I feel like this is the kid you roll the dice on. This is the kid you bet on, because everything tells me all he needs is the physical tools. I have what he needs there, and he's going to seize that opportunity. I think Oklahoma got a really, really good one. And now if you're Tennessee, you've lost B.J. Ojulari. You didn't push for Reggie Grimes. Now you need a pass rusher. And you're in pretty dire straits because you missed on your top target, and you let a kid that I think could be a dynamic pass rusher for you. I won't say you let him walk, but you backed way off. So now you better deliver. The guy that I think Tennessee needs to turn the heat up on is going to be a tough flip. He's going to be a tough flip and a tough sell. That's Morven Joseph. Yep. Joseph's currently committed to Florida State. He is an athletic freak. I mean that in the nicest way possible. The kid looks like he walked out of Muscle and Fitness magazine. Big, strong, incredibly fast, great first step. Looking like he is going to leave Florida State, especially if they don't get that coaching situation resolved pretty quickly. But you're going to be fighting Florida for him. The Gators want him. He's a Florida kid. That's not going to be easy. No. If you were to miss on him, I'm not sure where Tennessee goes.
I think Kari Coleman's I guess another name to keep an eye on. He's the only other one I can think of off the top of my head that is, I guess, a major option at this point, just because he's coming in and visiting this weekend, and he's had a Tennessee offer for a while. He camped over the summer, so I know that obviously he's got a connection with Tennessee's coaches. But yeah, I mean, as you said, the options there they're pretty thin. I think that'll be a topic for a future podcast, Brandon, is especially, I guess we kind of wait to see how this class plays out, and if they do end up missing on all their targets as pass rusher, because this would be the second straight class, if they do, that they missed out on a bringing in a big time pass rushing target, whether it's an outside linebacker or a defensive end prospect. Because you obviously last year you missed out on Justin Boygby, you missed it out on a couple. That's obviously the biggest one I can think of, but they missed out on a couple different guys in the last cycle that you were targeting. What's his face? Chris Bogle, another one that they
Florida.
Obviously didn't get either. So this will be, I think it'll be worth talking about if we're sitting here and it's past the early signing period and maybe even on National Signing Day after that happened, and talking about what did Tennessee miss out on, if they missed out on getting a good, even just an above average to good pass rusher in this class, which I think they do have one of those with oh goodness, I'm forgetting his name, the guy who most recently committed, who is a really good athlete, but he's not an instant impact type of guy. He's still very raw. He still has a lot to learn about football. He's only played it 1 year in high school. Jabari Butler, that's what I'm thinking of. I like him as a prospect. I like him a lot. I think his upside is immense, but he's not a guy who I think is going to be able to come in, like Roman Harrison. I think Roman Harrison's upside is immense, but he's not really made a huge impact as a freshman this year. I don't expect Butler to make an impact as a freshman, and Harrison is Butler's, he's got good size and good and weight on him and everything, but Roman Harrison was built like, he's built like a Roman, like a gladiator, and he hasn't been able to make as big of an impact even as a freshman. But I expect bigger things from him in the future. But I'm just saying Tennessee doesn't right now, committed to them, have a guy who I think is an instant impact. And I'm not saying that they have to come in, they have to be a freshman All-American or freshman All-SEC type of guy as a defensive end or pass rusher, but you're going to be losing Darrell Taylor. You're not going to have, really, to me, I think Kevon Bennett is okay there. He's shown some good flashes this year. He's done better, I think, than I thought he would this season. But Tennessee needs someone to be able to come in and provide at least quality snaps. Not like what Henry. You don't need another Henry To'oTo'o necessarily, but if you can have a guy like a Warren Brill, for example, who was pushing the veterans, or a Jalen McCullough who's pushing, and now he's playing a lot more because of injury to Trevon Flowers. I mean, that to me, I think that would be ideal if you can get someone who can come in and be like that, who can make a spot start or two if he needs to, but a guy who you can count on to play 20, 30 snaps in a game, and you're not going to feel like there's a significant, massive drop-off from your starter.
I think you've got a guy in the class who can do this. I'm like you and I talked when Jabari Butler committed, that I think we wrote the same article about the kid. I'm like you. I believe he could make an impact early. Mm-hmm. I don't know how big of he's going to play as a freshman. Yeah. He's going to play as a freshman. He's going to get some, if he's healthy, he's going to get some people. If you're Tennessee, I think Morvin Joseph is the big one to circle. But if you strike out on the, I'm going to do some air quotes here, the true edge rushers, I think you can still make this work. The key in this whole thing right now is land Laneith Whitehead. Get Whitehead. Whitehead is an every down linebacker. You can put him on the edge. I watched him show a really nice first step that I didn't know he had coming off the edge. Get a big sack. He's a solid pass rusher. I've seen the same thing from Bryson Eason. One of the, and Eason, as I've said before, that kid's at least 250. I think he's playing closer to 260, and it is not hurting him. This kid is huge. I think one option you might see if you land underneath Whitehead, you're good. You've still got Henry To'oTo'o. I think you can plug, if you get Desmond Tisdale, you've got a good chance to plug Whitehead in at linebacker. You've still got Martavius French in this class. Mm-hmm. You could put French, he could be the third guy in the middle there. You could bump Eason out on the edge. Eason's big enough and strong enough that he's going to be able to take that contact. I think he's a better inside, sideline to sideline guy, but he has the size and has the strength to hold up on that edge, and he's got a good first step too. He might be an interesting guy coming off that edge size-wise. He looks more like an end than a linebacker. He looks like a big end. And I think you could see he or French play that role. Both of those guys are really good athletes. Mm-hmm. French might be the better blitzer. So I think they're both more pure linebackers, but because of French's ability to blitz and get upfield and get to the quarterback, and Eason's size, those are guys I think you could, if you land Whitehead, you've got the talent there, you can experiment a little bit, and I think you could maybe manufacture between Jabari Butler, Roman Harrison, Quavaris Crouch, Martavius French, Bryson Eason. I think you can manufacture something off the edge. It may not be one guy, but I think you can get an effective pass rush, and Tennessee has the coaches to manufacture that, to get creative with their talent.
What about Tyler Barron? Is he just a different type of guy? Is he not would he not fit that same role?
I'm not sure where Tyler Barron fits in this defense, just to be honest with you. I'm not as high on Barron as a lot of people are. I think there's a good chance. A lot of people see Barron as a slam dunk to Tennessee, and I'm not sold. I really wouldn't be surprised if Barron wound up at Kentucky. I wouldn't be surprised if he wound up at Ohio State. Oklahoma has been there. I don't think that's the slam dunk a lot of people think it is. When Jay Hardy went to Auburn, it stunned everybody, and for really good reason. Mm-hmm. If Tyler Barron doesn't come to Tennessee, don't be shocked. I think he's probably a Vol, but I'll put it this way. I feel much more confident saying that I think Omari Thomas is going to come to Tennessee, far more confident than I do Tyler Barron. I don't know that Barron fits this defense myself. I think Barron's a 4-3 end. I don't know that he's that outside linebacker pass rusher that they're looking for. I don't know that he's going to be big enough to be a 3-4 end. If you had every question that I have heard about Reggie Grimes after watching he and Tyler Barron, I have pretty much all the same questions about Tyler Barron. I don't know what he is. I don't know what he is. I don't know where he fits. If you run away from him, we talked about teams run away from Grimes. One of the way Grimes combated that is he started sitting on screen passes. He started looking at what your offensive alignments were, and if he keyed on a screen pass, he was going to jump it. And he's intercepted several, scored on a couple. When Tyler Barron played Brentwood Academy, and when Knox Catholic played Brentwood Academy, they wore him out with screen passes to his side. Now, Barron made a huge play in that game. Made the play that won that game. He came off, beat the Brentwood Academy right tackle, got a sack, stripped the ball. It wound up a touchdown. It wound up a safety. And it blew the game open for Catholic. Led to the win. Really importantly, that play wasn't on Eli Sutton. Eli Sutton is a 2021 left tackle playing for Brentwood Academy. I think Eli Sutton's the best left tackle in the 2021 class in the country. And when he and Barron went head-to-head, Sutton won every matchup. When Catholic wanted to get production out of Barron, they had to put him on the other side of Sutton. Sutton won every rep, all night. And that gave me concern about Barron. Now, I know there are a lot of guys who are a lot higher on Barron than I am. Barron's junior tape, while he was still at Ensworth, is a lot better than his senior tape at Knox Catholic. As a junior, there were times he looked like he was unblockable. The comparison that I have heard Matt use is when his head's right and he's dialed in, it looks like Derek Barnett.
Wow.
Now, if you can get that out of him, if as a coaching staff you can get his head right and you can get that out of him and you believe you can get it every play, we all want that. Everybody here, everybody that's listened to this podcast knows how good Derek Barnett was and the impact he made. And if you can live up to that comparison, that's a great player and a real impact player. And he fits in any defense. I need to see it. Again, I'm not as high on him as a lot of people are. A lot of people are much higher on Barron than I am. I'm not so sure he's sold to Tennessee yet, and I don't know where he fits. I don't know what he'd be. I don't think he's an outside linebacker for Tennessee in this 3-4. We've certainly not seen him cover, and although you don't have to do that much, I mean you don't see Darrell Taylor dropping into coverage real often, but you do have to do it some.
Yeah,
and we've not seen him do that. So I don't know that I like him in space matched up on a tight end or a running back if a team's throwing at him. So we'll put his hand in the dirt. I don't think he's big enough to be a 3-4 end for Tennessee. I mean, you're talking about 270, 280. Pruitt has really made a point of liking these guys being about 300 pounds or higher. When you look at the guys he's got playing on the D-line right now, even at end. And I'm not sure where Barron fits. I'm interested to hear your take. I know we hadn't planned on that, and I may have just hit you with a bomb on that one, but
no, it's fine. I'll close with it here. My thought on Barron, I'm with you. I haven't been able to obviously see him in person like you have, so I can't attest maybe as much to his game. I have wondered about his fit. He's just kind of he's in a weird height weight for this 3-4 defense. I think he's better as a 4-3 end as he would be in a 3-4 defense for what Tennessee runs. And obviously Tennessee right now plays a lot more 4-3 than they do 3-4, but Pruitt wants to play more 3-4 base and then have, still quite a bit of nickel base too, because you just have to nowadays, college football. But he's mentioned before that not having the personnel exactly that he would want to do what he wants to do with this defense into his team, and having to earlier this year talk about simplifying things a lot more even than what they already were, because they just don't have the depth and the type of players to do what he wants to do. But with all that being said, I'm with you. I still think, I don't know, my gut actually does not say Barron will be a Vol, but my all reason and logic makes you feel like he should be, because he's been to campus I don't know how many times. But once again, we saw Jay Hardy went to campus a bunch of different times. I feel like when you look at the facts, when you look at the logical side of things, Tyler Barron will be a Vol. But there's just something with my gut, man. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't feel. I don't know. I just don't feel great saying he will be. I don't. I don't have that based on any inside information. I mean, like you said, it just feels off. If he's going to be a Vol, I don't know why he hasn't committed yet. I get it. You want to enjoy the process and all that stuff. I 100% understand that, and do not fault any kid for going out and enjoying the recruiting process, taking their visits, getting all the attention and love from coaches. I don't fault any kid for that at all. At the same time, though, he could definitely have done that already, and I don't know. He'll commit. And I think it'll be Tennessee, but I'm with you, Brandon. I don't feel like I can guarantee it's going to be Tennessee. And I feel a little better saying about Omari Thomas than I do Tyler Barron at this point. But we've already gone on long enough, Brandon. We could sit here and talk about that. We could talk about a couple other things that we didn't get a chance to touch on either. But I think that'll be a good place to end this podcast. Brandon, you all have a bunch of stuff going on over at VR2.site. What all do you want to let our listeners know and promote for VR2?
Right now, we're really trying to ramp up the content in our Insider Notebook. We're burning the phones up. We're trying to get all these interviews that we can right now. We're trying to, as we approach the early signing day, we're trying to stay right on top of all the information that we can. We were very fortunate to be the only media outlet invited to Reggie Grimes' announcement, so we got to stream that and announce that. I was at home with family. I've not been home for Thanksgiving in a long time, or I'd have been there. But our partner David May went. David got the honor of being in that house. He got to break that commitment, break that announcement. And even though it didn't go the way a lot of Tennessee fans wanted to, he was a top target and one of the top in-state players. So we're going to be going after guys like that. I'm trying to get out to Briarcrest to watch Omari Thomas. We're already making our early signing period schedule. Guys on the radar are Octavius Oxendine. There's a good chance we're going to make another run out to Memphis. We'll be looking at some of the Chattanooga prospects. We're going to try to be at Knox Catholic on the early signing period. Good chance we're going to be down in Atlanta as well. Marietta is a for sure stop that we've got circled. So we're going to be trying to bring you as absolute much coverage going forward as we can. The early signing period's coming up. We're going to try to get you as many live streams of these announcements as we can get, interviews from the commitments wherever they decide to go, be it UT or elsewhere. So if you want to be on top of this, if you want the most in-depth knowledge, if you want it coming straight from the recruits' mouths as we ramp into this early signing period, VR2.site, we've got you covered. Follow us on Twitter, _VR2_. You can follow me, Brandon _VR2. We love your questions. We've got some other podcasts that we do. Jump in here in the RTI VR2 Recruiting Podcast. Give us questions. We'll try to keep you updated as much as we can. Our premium notebook is $3 a month, and I promise you it's $3 well spent if you want to find the best Tennessee recruiting news we have right now.
Yes, make sure you're going to follow them, VR2, like you said, at _VR2_ on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We have all the same thing. We're at Rocky Top Insider on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course YouTube as well. Check it out. That's the way a lot of you listen to the podcast. So I'm sure if you're listening right now, a lot of you who are listening are probably doing that. But subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll have obviously podcasts and stuff. We'll have stuff from the game this upcoming weekend, Tennessee and Vanderbilt. We'll have some basketball coverage. We'll be doing some more video basketball coverage once the football season's over with. So be sure and check that out. Or you'll be on the lookout for that as well. But we'll have probably some video post-game reaction of the players, coming off the field and stuff like that. We'll try to do as much stuff for senior day as we can. Tennessee's kind of limiting some media access to that, so we'll see what we can get for senior day festivities for all of Tennessee's seniors that are going to be on the field and everything before and after the game. So we'll try to do all that as much as we can. We'll have the post-game reaction show live on there as well. But thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, this has been another episode of the RTI and VR2 Recruiting Podcast.